on today. So excited to have her on. We got Maya Corbic on. I see you now, sister. We're going to add you. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation on coming, being a guest on Minding My Business. I love what you're doing. You are a phenomenal human being doing amazing things in the world. And so I just had to have you on.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, so everybody, for those who know you or don't know you, Maya Corbic is a CPA, CA, specializing in teaching kids how to become freaking millionaires. That's amazing. Former CFO, auditor, and tax accountant. And you also have some really amazing free stuff in your bio. So if you guys have not checked out her bio, you are more than generous of what you're offering people. And she also has a millionaire mindset that you're doing right now. Did you guys already start?
No, we didn't actually. We start next week. So this is a perfect time to sign up. There are some spots still available. So thank you so much for mentioning that. I really appreciate it. So for any parents that want their kids to learn about money and becoming financially independent, we have kids workshops and we have teen workshops. So all that is in my bio. There are links there.
I'm not even gonna lie. So as an adult, adulting, there's a lot of reprogramming that needs to be done for adults. And one thing that I can say as a coach and also a student is that you just like, I was always saying, I was like, I wish there was like adult classes, but they spoke to me like a kid. You know, like I'm like, you don't feel judged. You don't feel like you've done anything wrong. It's just like clean slate. Let's like rebuild the new, and you know, this is a safe space. So I was like, what about adults? Can adults sign up? And like do you have to be a kid? Because if you want to like relearn, I think it's great even for adults.
You know, it's so funny you say that because a lot of times I get parents and they're like, please teach me. And a lot of them actually go through the stuff that I teach the kids, and then they do it with their children. And some of them even, they say they kind of sit in the background when I'm teaching because they want to know these things because nobody ever taught them these things. But I think there's a lot of shame when it comes to money and guilt, and there shouldn't be any, but there is. A really good friend of mine, she's on Instagram as well. Her name is Michelle. She goes by, oh gosh, I can't remember her Instagram handle. I feel so bad right now. Yeah, we'll put it in the comments. But she had a really good post one time, and she said, you know, if somebody asked you, can you tap dance? And let's say you don't know how to tap dance. Nobody ever taught you. You would be just like, yeah, I don't know how to tap dance. But if somebody asks you, do you know how to invest? And do you know how your credit score is calculated? Mm-hmm. You would feel, most people feel ashamed saying, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do we feel ashamed about something that nobody has ever taught us? Most of us didn't learn this in school, and most of us did not learn this from our parents.
No, we actually learned like to not have these conversations. That's why I was like, when I found you, I was like, I wonder too, like, would it be weird if adults were like sitting in these, or maybe like to start a class for adults that want to be, I know this isn't like demeaning or anything, but treated like children. Like when I would go into the Apple store, I'm like, hey, you guys, talk to me like a kindergartner, please. Like, you're not like putting me down. Like, I literally, like, it's a whole nother language for me. And so they were like, okay, now like here's number one and number two. And I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I feel like that when it comes to technology as well. Like being an entrepreneur, I feel like every time I talk to people, like, you know, my website is being hosted by HostGator, and I call them up and I'm like, okay, this is not working. What do I do? And they start telling me stuff and I'm like, no. I'm like, you're talking a different language. Talk to me like I'm a child.
That's funny. It's for real though. I mean, and I think, like you said, like shame is a big thing, but I want to start from the like rewind, like this is just such an amazing thing that you're doing. And the whole thing, like minding my business, is like creating your own lane. And I really believe you've done that, because you just like, if you watch your posts and you see how you're describing things and even the energy that you're describing them in, like energy speaks before like words. So my question to you is like, what is this backstory of how you got into the line of work that you've pursued as a career today?
So, well, many people don't know this, but I am a first generation immigrant from war-torn Bosnia. I immigrated when I was 15 with my parents and my brother. We only had 2 suitcases and $50. So I lived in government shelters, government housing. But despite all that, like I did that traditional route, went to school, got the really good grades, got into one of the top universities. I had a job with one of the top four accounting firms. And this is what, my parents advised me to do, which is, there's nothing wrong with this. This is all they knew. So I kind of did all that and I checked off all the boxes along the way. But it was more that along that way, I guess I taught myself how to become financially literate. I picked up some things from my parents, but they could only teach me so much. And then we became financially independent when I was 32. Like we paid off our mortgage, we paid off our debts that we had, like student loans, car loans, whatnot. And at that time, I realized that I was also doing some accounting on the side, and there were a lot of people that I was talking with, and it seemed like a lot of people were struggling with finances. A lot of it had to do with debt, but there were other aspects of personal finance that they were struggling with. And I thought about, I was like, well, how can we help these people? And the more I dug into this, like, it was kind of like, okay, where did this come from? And it really came from childhood because nobody ever taught them about money. And at that time, my kids were 4 and 2 years old. And I was thinking, well, okay, nobody taught these people about money, but okay, what are my kids going to learn? So I looked into our school system, and at the time, like now things have changed. Like this was 10 years ago when I was doing this. So I looked at what my kids were going to learn, and I'm like, okay, well, they're not really going to learn much. So then I started teaching them, and I realized that I really enjoyed doing this, and I really didn't need my other job. So I quit that. And as I started teaching my own kids, other people wanted me to teach their kids. And prior to the pandemic, I used to actually go to schools and I would do actual live workshops. I would also teach parents to teach kids. So I had workshops for parents. But after the pandemic, I couldn't go into schools anymore. So now I'm doing it online, which is even better, I guess, because I can reach more people.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I mean, I always think if you don't, even with this line of work, like if you haven't found the solution, you have to create it. And that's where a lot of like entrepreneurs, I think, create something where it's like you're looking for an answer for something that you haven't been able to find. And you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna like create my own lane and teach other people like it's not as complicated as we think. And yeah, so
it's really not. I think a lot of people have fear, and sometimes people tell me, and I'm talking about smart people. Yeah. And most people are smart. Everybody can comprehend this, but I'm talking like, here's a perfect example. Like I have a friend, she's an optometrist, super smart lady, went to school for so many years, but she tells me every time I start talking about money, or even if she sees my posts, she says she gets anxious because I'm talking about money, and it shouldn't be, it's really not that complicated, and it shouldn't make people feel that way.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it happens.
Like the shame, like the shame, or like you should feel bad that you don't know how to do this at your age, but you're right. Like if we're not taught, like why can we not, you brought up a really great point. Like why if somebody asks you about tap dancing, you're like, no, I don't know how to tap dance. Because on top of like, what do you know about money or investing? I don't know about money. I don't really know,
Right.
So, that I feel like the energy, the emotions can really block us. But speaking of that, like you're making it sound like it was just such a smooth transitional process, and maybe that was for you. But I mean, you seem like you've been doing this work for, you said 10 years ago. Has it been a 10-year journey?
It has been a 10-year journey, and it definitely was not a smooth one.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then, because I'm like, you're just kind of making it sound, like people like make these stories of like the becoming like so smooth, but like these are not the conversations I really want. I want to like get people can have like, like, okay, we're all in this together here. So let me ask you this. What did you have to overcome in order to like become like who you are today? Like for this journey of what you've created, like what are some things that you had to personally overcome in order to become who you are today?
Oh wow, I think there were so many things. My goodness. Starting with me being an immigrant, you always feel like you don't really have a place. And it's like, who am I to come and tell other people what to do with their kids? My accent, I can't lose this accent. I immigrated when I was 15. I try everything. I still mix things up and I say things funny, especially like I am on Instagram. I have a lot of followers on Instagram. And it's really hard for me to put myself out there. Like I know sometimes I'll say things and they sound weird. In my head, they sound fantastic. But when I say them, I'm like, my kids laugh, they correct me, but I'm just like, I have to put myself out there. People will make fun of me. People will say, oh, she sounds illiterate, but like I have a message, and the bottom line is there's a message there. Like maybe I'll mess up some words, maybe grammatically I'll say something that's incorrect, but at the end of the day, there's a message that I'm trying to give to people, and whoever is interested, they will absorb it, they will take it and run with it, and others will, whatever, they'll make fun of me, and that's okay. That's, I can't control that. The big part of it too has been, this is a really hard one, like sales. My gosh, like trying to like tell people like I have a quality product here. Here it is. I'm not like a salesy kind of person. And this goes back to that money mindset, and like money mindset is really the core of everything that I teach. It was very difficult, like just even promoting this. Going into school. So I would give a lot of stuff for free at the beginning. I've done so many freebies, but the thing about freebies is like, when you do stuff for free, people don't take you seriously.
Yeah.
And they just think it's like, it's not worth their time. So it's been very challenging, kind of feeling my own worth and saying, I know what I'm talking about, and I can help you get the results to where you want, like I can help you get to the end point where you want to go with you and your child.
Yeah. That's, thank you so much for being so authentic and transparent, because these are the conversations like I thrive on. And because it's the facts for every human being is like self-worth and self-value and, why we're not doing things, but to have that awareness that you have had to like the overcoming to become, it's not just like law of attraction, like just think, like there's blocks that get in our way. And unless we are honest and aware about them, we can't truly move forward. Like
right.
Forward. So
right.
Thank you for saying that. I just want to say thank you, because like it's literally the core, the value, the worth. I literally had a conversation and I had a meeting with somebody that generates like a lot of money, like 8 figures, we'll say. And they just wanted to do things for free. I was like, you're missing the fact. It's not that you don't need any more money. It's the matter of fact that people aren't going to value the content as much as even if you charge like a low ticket item.
Yeah, and that's what I've started doing. Like for some of the, like I do have a membership club, and I charge a small amount of money for it, just because I want to make it affordable to anybody in the world. Because I know that there are people from third world countries, but it's even affordable for them. But I think you have to charge for some of these services, because if you don't, I've tested this, I would say at least 100 times, if not more. I've given stuff for free, and sometimes people don't even show up. I charge money, people show up, they love it, they give me 5-star reviews, and it's like, and you know what? Also, I think we do the service to ourselves when we don't charge for something. Yeah. That it's like you're putting yourself down, like on some subconscious level. There is this lesson of like, am I worthy enough? And will people pay for it? And like, I don't, it's really deep. You have to
Yeah.
dig deep. And it's like, why am I doing this? You know, why do I feel uncomfortable charging for this? And a lot of it has to do with the way we were brought up. And so when it comes to money, especially, money mindset is literally like the cornerstone of financial literacy. Like, we've all grown up in a certain environment that has shaped of who we are and how we think about money. So it would be like things we heard about money when we're growing up. Like, what did our parents say? And then what did they do? And then did any emotional incidents occur around money? You know, did our parents argue about money? Or like in my case, I feel like I grew up in society because, you know, it was communist at the time and socialist. And it was almost like you should give and get everything for free. And God forbid you charge for something, you are sleazy and you are
Horrible.
Yeah, like, what kind of person are you? You should give that for free. Yeah. And it was, yeah, I still struggle with it. I really do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we all have our own, yeah, we all have our own limiting beliefs. So we need
this 8-figure earner, I'm having a conversation like, why would you not charge to fast track people for your knowledge that's going to change their life? Like, I feel bad. I'm making enough money. Like, you know,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I think social media is for. Like, this is all free for you guys, and it's like contributing back. Like, all your posts are free, and that's just building up trust, credibility, value. Like anything else, even if it's like $7, you know, like, needs to be charged.
Something. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there are a lot of social media influencers. I wouldn't call them influencers. I'm just going to call them personal finance educators out there. And they're putting out some amazing content. And all of it is for free. And it takes a long time to create some of that content. And, you know, if you're looking for great accounts, you can just, you know, follow some of the accounts that I follow. I have too many people in there. I need to clean that up a little bit. But there are some amazing financial educators out there that are just giving out all this content for free. So if you want free, like, it's there. But I think for us who are content creators, for sure, like, we need to know our worth. We need to kind of step up and charge for that, right? But it's hard. It is really hard. I struggle with it a lot.
I always say, like, it's hard until it's not, right? It's like hard until it becomes like a little lighter, and then it becomes a little lighter. Unless we're constantly like putting ourselves in uncomfortable positions to like then take, like, you know, your 5 figures to 6 figures or 6 figures to 7 figures, then of course it's harder because it's newer. So, you know, I feel it's like if you're lifting, like if you work out and you're doing like 5 pounds, eventually 5 pounds isn't so heavy anymore. But
Right.
10 pounds is. But then 10 pounds isn't so heavy, like, if you keep doing it month after month. But I mean, I guess you're the expert in this. So I'm like, I just think it's so fascinating. I love having these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you know, I just want to mention this. So this summer, I actually made a post on my Instagram, how my kids make $40 an hour. Okay. But they don't work full-time or part-time, but it was just, the post was about how they managed to make $40 an hour. And what this was essentially is, my next door neighbor, a young professional who doesn't have time to cut his grass, just kind of let his grass grow. And it was really, really tall. And so some of the neighbors wanted to call the city on him. And I just, you know, took this opportunity to talk to my kids. And I said, well, guys, you already cut our grass. Why don't you offer your services to him? So I prepped them how they should talk to him, how they should try to sell their service, what to say. And, you know, we also did some research to figure out what are the going rates for that kind of lot. And then, you know, if he wanted to negotiate, like, okay, prep them for negotiation. So all that. And anyway, so they went over there and they got the gig. So they make $40 an hour. It takes them less than an hour. This is like if one person is working on it, right? So together they finish it in half an hour. Anyhow, but there were a lot of comments, like negative comments on Instagram, like, oh, you know, what are you teaching your kids? Like, you're putting down people that actually, you know, because I was comparing that to, because both of my kids are teenagers, to how some of their friends are working for minimum wage. And I was just trying to say, I'm not putting anybody down. I used to work for minimum wage. I'm just trying to shift their way of thinking. I don't want them to think like me, that I only have to get what's given to me. Like, I'm a teenager and all I can earn, my earning potential is capped at the minimum wage for all the teenagers. Well, that's not true. My earning potential is whatever I want it to be. So it could be $40 an hour. It could be more than that. You know, I could, like, or for my kids, like, they're happy with $40 that they get. But if they wanted to expand this business, they could have gone to like other neighbors and, you know, ask to do the same kind of thing. So I want my kids and other people's kids to think differently. So, you know, we're talking about charging money, and I want them to feel comfortable charging for what they do, because as I said, like, we researched how much it costs for the lawn to be cut in our area, and it was $40 an hour. And, you know, if these big companies can charge that much, who's to say that a teenager cannot? Why is it that, like, I know that my teenager can do an amazing job cutting that grass, and if I was to compare that actual quality of work to what a company does, it's the same quality. So why wouldn't the teenager charge the same amount of money? Why wouldn't they make $40 an hour? I want them to think that way.
Yeah, opportunities.
Yeah.
Opportunities and expansion. I noticed as I was looking like at some of the charts, you teach like multiple things. Like you mentioned just recently, like developing life skills on negotiation, developing you know, the prep work to build confidence by like doing your research, like not just going up and making up numbers, but seeing like what's the going rate. So you're teaching them like very valuable life skills to be successful for their future.
Right.
That's kind of how, you know, I'm looking at it. But even, so you mentioned even something about like, I've got like a gazillion questions, like one at a time, Tanya. Okay, so say they get comfortable in this. We kind of talked about it a second ago about like it's hard until it's not, right? Or it's hard until it becomes a little less harder. When they like say they get comfortable, when you teach, or do you teach this when a child is, or a kid or adult in your courses, when they like become, you know, like feeling pretty confident in a certain skill set, like how to pivot into a bigger opportunity in their mind? Because it's one thing I realize, like, and I'm sure you can see the same. I used to see it myself, right? I'm aware of it now, but I'll see something of me just like thinking one way, and then I'll get like comfortable because I've adjusted, and then it's time to like grow more, and it's like, okay, putting yourself in another position for your growth, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. So, so my courses are, I guess, too short. Technically, this is why I believe that financial literacy education should be in our schools. Because if it was, let's say, from kindergarten all the way to grade 12, you would be able to progress through those kind of, through that kind of thinking and that evolution, right? Like as you change as a character, you change, your mindset changes when it comes to earning money. But what I teach, and I try to squeeze as much as I can, because my workshops are typically 1 hour per day for like 5 days, right? So my goal is to talk to my students and tell them about the possibilities and opportunities that are out there, and kind of like trigger their curiosity, as well as almost amaze them with like things that they can potentially do, so that hopefully that ignites something in them, so that they can take that next step and do some of those things. But I did have, like, I remember this was years ago, but I was teaching this lunchtime workshop. This was actually in person prior to COVID. And I remember teaching them about the cash flow quadrant, and maybe some of you don't know what that is, and I can probably explain it later. But I was teaching, like, there's different ways of earning money. And this is like, to me, it was like such a cool lesson. I'm like, you know, and anyways, this one kid from grade 8, he was so sweet. He's like, okay, Miss Maya, thank you for teaching me this, but I really just, like, I don't want to make that kind of money. I just want to be an employee, and I just want to do my 9 to 5 and I'm good. And I said, oh, I was actually shocked, to be honest. But I was like, you know what, Derek? Thank you for telling me that. But at least you know that there are all these opportunities available to you. So if one day you get tired of your 9 to 5, then hopefully you will remember what I taught you. And maybe, you can take advantage of some of those opportunities.
Yeah. And I feel like that's, and for this actually triggers something back to the beginning of what you were saying is that, you're talking about what inspired you to get into this line of work and, why you're so passionate about it. Because typically there's always a personal story behind the career that somebody chooses. And you mentioned you picked up a few things from your parents, but they weren't capable of showing you what they were not. And this kind of goes to the story that you're telling right now is he was probably programmed to think like that. And yeah, and I think this comes back even to parents that are enrolling their children into something like this. It's you can't teach what you're not.
Right.
It's an action. It's not a conversation. It's a being.
It's a being. And I think it's also, you have to be surrounded by it. It's really interesting because when I became a CPA, and as I said, I had some of my own clients on the side, and I remember doing people's taxes and just being absolutely floored how much money some professions were making, let's say trades, in comparison to professionals like CPAs and lawyers and doctors. And, I remember seeing how much some people were making money and they were not working that much. And I remember, being an accountant in the public field is, for all of those who are doing it, they know it's not 9 to 5 job. It's 5 to 9. And so, yes, it looks glossy on the surface, but we're all working crazy hours. So when you divide that salary by the number of hours you're working, you're making very little. You're making McDonald's salary, right? But it looks prestigious. And I just remember doing people's taxes and I was like, wow, I have this backwards. Here I am, working like crazy, and my kids were little. I don't have much time to spend with them. And here's somebody else who did not finish all the schooling that I finished, but they're killing it out there and they have a ton of free time. And so this is very difficult concept to grasp. But it's, once you see this, as you said, I couldn't even comprehend that until I had an experience with something like that. And then, once I started seeing, I saw more and more of that. And I think that sort of gave me the courage to quit my job at the time and try doing something different. So that's what I'm trying to teach my kids and my students as well.
Yeah, and that's what I actually really also admired about you is it's not that you just decided hey, let me learn how to do this because this is a pain point, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Self-education is actually sometimes better because most of the time when you're doing self-education, you're kind of unlearning. And so what I love though is that you actually have the experience, you have the credentials, you fulfilled a role for years. How many years did you do CPA work and accounting work?
8 years. Actually 10 years, 2 years at a small firm and then 8 years at a big firm. Yeah. So 10 years.
Well, actually it's a life skill anyway. So you probably just give me to it forever because you could look at your own stuff.
No, it's been great. I'm not on top of tax stuff. I also used to do taxes. I'm not on top of, meaning I don't really if somebody gave me to do their tax. I learned a lot. I think it's more that I learned certain skills. Working in that kind of environment is very stressful. You're putting out fires all the time. You're dealing with unknowns all the time. Each day is very different. And so I've learned, I felt like that prepared me for what I'm doing right now.
Hey, it's Tanya. I'm calling a quick timeout intermission huddle, so bring it in. I'm personally inviting you to our inner circle. It's our monthly VIP meetup with other achievers just like us. Each week, I'm teaching everything you're going to need in order to be successful, to step into the most elite version of yourself. I'm going to break this down play by play, the tools, the systems, the strategies, everything you're going to need in order to operate at higher levels mentally, physically, emotionally, and energetically. Look, we're in a season where the idea of full potential just isn't cutting it anymore. It's time to really be it now. So click the link in the show notes and I'll see you in the inner circle. Peace. Yeah, which is entrepreneurship. It's just every different category is that. But I think it's a good pivotal question is dealing with the high demands, because people just see the glossy stuff. You mentioned the word glossy. So I think that's a great word. Like, people see the glossy, they see the forefront, but they don't see the back end work, that all the preparation that it took to like put the forefront work together. You know, it's like the work behind the work. And so what life skills do you personally turn to that allow you to operate at peak performance when there are many fires going on and it's really nobody else's, you know, you're not projecting that out into your students or your online community or anything like that?
So I think being an entrepreneur, and I think most entrepreneurs can agree with this, there are fires all the time. There are fires burning even right now in the background. You guys can't see them, okay? There are so many fires. It's just ridiculous. And actually, like, I used to work as a CFO of a private school, and we always used to joke, we're like, man, we make this look really, really good, but if only people knew what happens in the background. So that's really what it is. It's like, it's just trying to be that swan. You know, have you ever seen a swan? Like, they just glide nicely on the surface, but their little feet are working very, very hard. Yeah. And I think it's about being real. Personally, for me, the skills are trying to prioritize, like really trying to figure out, okay, like, what do I really need to get done today? And, you know, also being realistic about how long it will take. That's one thing I'm struggling with still. And then trying to remember what my goals are. You know, each month I set some goals, and then I'm kind of like, okay, does this really align with my goals? Yes or no? And do I really need to be doing this? If I don't need to be doing it, can somebody else do it, or should I just like cut it? But it's hard because it's easier said than done. And I try to simplify. I think simplicity, isn't it Steve Jobs that said the simplicity is the most beautiful thing, or something along those lines? So I think the more we complicate things, the harder it is to do anything.
What are some of your I think these are phenomenal like answers. I mean, they're your answers, so there's clearly they're correct answers. There's no wrong answer, but like, I want to get a little bit deeper, because like there's a person behind the business. There's a person behind the roles of, mother, and I believe you're married. I saw that.
Yeah. 17 years.
Behind friend, like there's a person, a human being that's required to operate at high levels with the more responsibilities that you've taken on and the roles that you've chosen to take on. But like, what are your personal like non-negotiables that keep you like mentally sharp and in good energy and in good spirit, like those type of like self-care practices?
Yeah, those are really important. Like, I know, and I've always been this way. Like, I know when I get out of balance. I'm not a nice person. I tend to be a nice person. I really try my hardest, but when they say like when your cup is empty and you can't pour to anybody else. So I'm totally that person. So I know, and I'm a workaholic, and I love what I do. I could be working on it all day, every day. But what happens when I work on it all day, every day, I notice that I'm not spending quality time with my kids or with my husband. Like, if I'm not exercising, I find like exercise for me is so important. I love running, and I feel like I need to get this energy, like negative energy out, right? There's a lot of negative energy because I'm putting out fires every day, and it's kind of like, okay, like really, are we doing this again? Or like, oh my God, I can't believe so and so did this, right? So it's kind of like, instead of being angry with that person, it's like, okay, let's go for a run. Let's run this off. I do want to get more into meditation. I'm not very good at that. But I think the meditation can help clear things and just kind of, make things a little bit more clear. I do meditate when I do yoga, but that's kind of
Yeah. I
not,
will say though, to like bust the misbelief about meditation, everybody thinks like meditation's to quiet the mind. Like, no, exercise helps with that. Meditation is just to kind of step out of the reaction mode of your thoughts. So you're still going to have all the thoughts there, but you're not going to be like intertwined in them. So just to not like make, because everybody thinks like meditation, then you're like, oh, I suck at it, and then maybe I'm not going to do it because it's so hard. But like, no, meditation, that's meditation. Like, it's just
right.
So yeah. I feel like, don't give up. It's worth it.
Yeah, but I think it's important. I think just for me personally, it's important to be more balanced in my life, like making sure I see my friends, making sure that the work does not take over, even though I love what I do, but it can become very, very stressful. And then, as I said, I know it when I'm snappy, when I'm, just like, I can feel it. And I'm just like, okay, you know what? People around me are the people that I love the most. They don't deserve to see me this way. So need to disconnect. I need to get my sleep. That's a huge one. If I'm one of those people, I know there are people out there that are running on 5 or 6 hours of sleep. Not for me. Sorry. I tried. It doesn't work. No. So, yeah.
It doesn't for anybody. Eventually, everything's going to get caught up with you. It might be a year later. It might be a few months. It might be 5 years. Eventually, all of those things of self-neglect are going to catch up with you. Like, even Kevin Hart said that in his book, The Decision. He's like, he used to say, I don't have time to sleep, I don't have time to train, I don't have time to eat. Like, he realized eventually he crashed. So yeah, it's everybody. But that's why I like having these conversations, because there's a lot of people that just are getting into entrepreneurship, or maybe that have been in there and they're seasonal and they still haven't, there's success patterns for every single person that has created their own lane. And, there's no like course book to this stuff.
No, I mean, I wish there was, but I feel like I learned so much from other entrepreneurs. When Clubhouse came into existence during the pandemic, I was one of the, I spent so much time on it because there were a lot of interesting people on it, a lot of, I guess, entrepreneurs of like 7- and 8-figure businesses. And it was really interesting listening to them, because it's the stuff that nobody really talks about, but we need to talk about it. We need to understand it. And we need to be transparent and honest about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's how we can, move out of it faster. We pretend it doesn't exist, and it just builds up to a point where it harms us, or we end up harming others, with our words, our actions, our behaviors. And so, yeah, I love these conversations. Thank you. I love having these honest conversations, because this is really for you guys. This is for you guys watching and to engage. And, if you guys have any questions, like, feel free to ask them below. We'll take a look at them. Definitely. We'll pay attention to them. As far as like, what would you say like your non-negotiables are? You talked about things that help you reconnect when you're feeling like not yourself, or that like work has kind of taken over you. It's easy to go down that rabbit hole, especially when you're so passionate about your projects and about what you're creating, because you're creating. It's literally like giving birth to like a creation of something, and then it's like in a baby phase, and then it becomes in a toddler phase, and it's like has its different phases. And sometimes it needs a lot of attention, sometimes it needs less. But what are some of your like daily habits and rituals that you feel have really been significant game changers in your business and in your life, and overall in just your mindset?
I would say the negotiables are definitely spending time with my kids, like making sure I see them when they go to school, making sure I see them when they come back, and understand like, what happened in their day. Like, that connection with my kids is non-negotiable, especially because now they're teenagers and they will be leaving home soon. So I only have limited amount of time with them, and I will always have the time to work on my business. I will not have this time with my kids. That's a big one. I think I wouldn't say it's non-negotiable, but I really strive every day just to get outside for a walk. If I can exercise, at least a walk. I find it clears my mind, or sometimes I do it by myself, or if my husband's available, we like to just kind of go together, talk about our day. I usually vent a lot since we're being very honest. He's like a therapist and he listens to it all. He's been listening to my career issues since like we got married. So yes, he deserves an award for that. But we're very different personalities too. Like he's more kind of introverted, and I'm the one that I think when we talk about what's non-negotiable, or how you asked me earlier, how do I cope? I think we all have to figure out what kind of person we are. I don't like to keep things bottled. It's just not who I am. Like if I do it, I don't know. I think it would probably explode. I'm not sure what would happen. I just have to let it out. So I release it. I talk about it. I cry a lot. I'm very honest about it. Many people have seen.
That's cellular memory releasing, but let's be transparent here. I mean, if you're not letting it out in some way, you're numbing or suppressing it with medication.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, a lot of times like people are like, oh my God, you're crying. I'm like, no, it's a good thing I'm crying. Like I feel so much better after. We're good. Let's go. Let's keep going. Right. But if I held on to that, then I'm constantly holding on to that until I let go. Like I personally have to let go. So it's like talking about it. I cried out. I'm good. And I don't, like, ever since I was a kid, everybody's like, aren't you embarrassed that you're crying? I'm like, well, not really. Like, I haven't been embarrassed. I don't know. Maybe I should be, but I'm like, meh. I try not to cry like in front of too many people, but it happens, right? Like,
I feel like that's almost like the same thing of going back to the beginning of our conversation, where it's like we are taught to be ashamed if we have an unhealthy relationship around money. Like it's almost the same concept as like you should be ashamed because you're sad, but you can't be ashamed if you're happy. Like,
yeah,
it's like all taught behavior. Who made these rules up anyway?
Yeah, who made these rules?
I think that's the cool thing though about like about what you do is it's like you create your rules, and then you get to teach like our future generation how to also create the rules, because it's like they are the ones that are going to make up the rules. They are going to be changing the rules. They're going to be changing, you know, so at least like do what makes you happy. But I have noticed that, I know even for myself and like my clients and students and people that I see to be success, because success leaves clues, is that like daily habits and rituals and routines are one of the hybrids to operating at higher levels and peak performance. And so you mentioned a few of your non-negotiables, but what are some of your daily habits that are like a big contribution to you constantly growing and evolving and expanding?
I try to stick to my to-do list, but I prioritize. So that first thing that's there on the to-do list is kind of like my priority. So I try, it doesn't always work, but I really try hard to just take care of that first thing in the morning. Big thing is I don't watch news in the morning. I don't read news in the morning. I stay away from social media. I actually use social media primarily for business. To me, I'm like my friends and my family that who are on social media, I follow up with them in real life. Like I don't use social media for personal purposes. Like it's just for business. Mm-hmm. So that kind of like that start to my morning is really important. Like I don't do social media. I don't do news. I try to journal. It helps me. I try to, watch something funny. I try to be positive. I stay away from drama. Yeah, I think I'm really, really careful about what affects, like what I let in, if that makes any sense. Because also,
Yeah.
like sometimes, like just recently, we had something that happened that involved my kids, and I had to deal with it, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. But I could tell that it was impacting my work.
Mhm.
So sometimes when these negative situations happen, we have to deal with them.
Yeah.
And so they kind of affect your energy, they affect your mood, they affect your concentration, focus on work. And so I'm kind of like, okay, well, I have to deal with this, but let's make it as swift as possible so that I can focus on delivering value to my students and to everybody else who's following me on Instagram.
Hmm. No, I mean, those are facts. I think a lot of times, like, but I mean, even like the things that, like, say, like our past mess cleanups, right? Like, say, I know right now, I'm pretty transparent with everybody at this point. I feel like when you're transparent, you're free. I mean, if you're going through a situation or a very vulnerable space or a dark space, like, don't share it with people until you've overcome it. But one thing is, past mess of ignorance of messing up my credit, and once you mess that up, it's not a quick fix.
Yeah,
you know it's a
yeah.
it's a process. And so there's a forgiveness phase where, and I think this all ties into this as well, as like forgiving the past version of you that had made that mess. But if you don't go back and clean it up, it's forever going, like you said, to affect your work, affect your performance, affect your, and all those little things that we allow to pile up, they constantly build up, build up, build up. And that's what creates our like disease, our depression, our anxiety, our all those mental things. So sometimes it's an urgent thing, like you're saying, but like to have that self-awareness and like, well, I have to stop what I'm doing. Let me go back. Let me like handle this. And then all this stuff will still be here.
Yeah, I think that's really important, as you said, like certain things that don't give us peace, it's really important to deal with them. And I don't know, I value my peace. I don't want anything disturbing it. So whether it's a situation at work, whether it's a situation with a family member or a friend or whatever, I think it's important to just deal with that as swiftly as possible, like coming from a kind place, being understanding and all that. But just kind of like, okay, let's deal with this, figure out what the best solution is so that we can move on to the rest of our lives and enjoy it. Like I don't want to hang on to this, like it's like anchors. I don't know, I emotionally, energetically, like I feel those, and that's probably why I'm a crier too. I just like I like to be a little bit lighter. It makes me feel lighter when I deal with these kind of things. But as you said, like with credit, so many people have messed up their credit, and that's one thing that I teach kids, especially teenagers. I teach them how important it is to properly manage their credit, and that credit cards and debt are not necessarily bad. It's just that we need to learn how to manage them properly. So a lot of them will go off to university or college, and what is happening, well, what has been happening for many, many years is that these educational institutions have a lot of booths set up by financial institutions that will give out credit cards to our 18-year-olds, in exchange for a t-shirt or something like that. And in addition with a t-shirt. Or like, I remember I got my first credit card with a CD. They gave me a free CD and they said, here's a credit card. So a lot of people get themselves in trouble because they don't know how to manage that credit card. And that's why it's really important to talk to our kids about it.
Honestly, like you said that, and I had a memory pop up. I'm like, I was like, I got my first credit card when I was in college, and I've never, and of course I take personal responsibility, don't get me wrong. There's the internet, I can self-educate, I could have asked for help, but like, yeah, you like literally have been set up to fail from the very beginning. Like from the very beginning, and then if we don't go back and we don't look at that, I'm like, wait a second, where did it first start? And then yeah. So you're right. You're right on that. I'm like, they got me.
That's how it started for most people. Actually, most people that have that spoke with me. I don't have data on this. It would be actually interesting if somebody, did some research on this, but most of the parents that spoke with me about credit cards and debt mentioned that that's kind of how they got themselves in debt trouble. They started off with getting that first credit card in university or college.
Yeah, yeah, they should literally, they don't care because they want your money, but those are facts of like how, but you think about that, but think about this too, right? So I love where we're going with this. I mean, this whole conversation, there's so many like different questions I can ask, but because I very value you, your time, and the audience, we keep this to an hour max. But like, think about anything in life. When we do something and our first experience does set us up to fail, and then we've created a belief around it, and shame and judgment, and then how does this cycle break?
I think the cycle only breaks with self-education. But before self-education, I think we need to come to a realization that we need to change, right? But that's only part of the puzzle. It's kind of like, okay, we need to change. And then the next part is doing the work. And so, we have to put in the time and the effort and dedication to make that change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know, like, of course, the more adults you become, the more roles you take on, the more responsibilities, then you kind of like, like we talked about, kind of like push it down, push it down, push it down. And we don't realize like the psychological damage over time, and then pouring that back into, never really dealing with it. And then by showing our children, like you gave that example of that one eighth grader that's like, I just want to work a 9 to 5 to have like security. Because practically that's like what you're saying. Like, if you're going to say you want to work a 9 to 5, that's pretty much because either one, as you mentioned earlier, you don't think there's any other option, or number two, we're just doing it for the reason of feeling like safe and secure. I don't know. Are there any other reasons?
I think he said to me that he thought the other stuff was too much work. So I was like, okay. Even when you work 9 to 5, it can be a lot of work. If you are, it just depends on what kind of employee you are. A lot of employees actually really care about the quality of work that they produce, and they put in a lot of hours and effort into that work. So is it better? There's no better or worse. It's just like, what do people want to do? Maybe some people want to give that time to somebody else and pour their time and energy to somebody else's company, or maybe they want to build something for themselves. And again, like, there is no better answer, like, is this better or that? It's just kind of like whatever works for you.
And it's true. And I'm not bashing 9 to 5, because like, I have a team and I'm so grateful for my girls, but I also give them freedom. Like, hey, if you want to work whatever hours, as long as these jobs get done, like, I'm giving you freedom, but you also, like, we've got like a mission to fulfill. And so I think working for like, we're a team, and so like, as long as you have like, but everything's work. Like,
everything is work. Exactly.
Everything is work. You just gotta be, you mentioned earlier, like, know your core values. Your core values, you mentioned a key word is you value your peace.
Yeah. That's huge to me.
I love this. And this is, I think everybody, like, at the end of the day, like, what else is there? Peace, happiness, love. I think fulfillment, isn't that really what we really think certain things, people, places are gonna bring us?
Right. Yes.
So my question, because I know I can't even believe it's like been almost an hour, but if you were to leave everybody watching the replay, one thing that they can apply like every single day that will create an impact in their life, and it can be like a mental mindset, money mindset, it could be a life skill, it could be whatever you feel is going to be that one thing. What do you think that one thing would be for somebody to take with them that's going to make some form of an impact in their life?
I think Yeah, I totally get that. So for me, I would say that would be taking small steps, knowing what your goal is, but taking small steps each day to get there. Being better than you were yesterday, just by a little bit. One of my favorite books is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he talks about that. And it's not easy. It seems like, oh, it's so easy to do that, but it's actually not. There are days when you're just like, you know what? I'm tired. I really don't feel like doing this. But I know that for me, that's been one thing that has worked. And I tell that to my kids too. So it's just like little incremental steps, but over a long period of time, they actually add up to something bigger and they help you reach your goals. And to be patient to reach those goals. I think we live in this impatient society. Like I get a lot of comments from people, you know, everybody, like not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are just like, they want to be instantaneously rich. It doesn't work like that. Or they want like instant results, like no instant results. Sorry, people, it doesn't work. And I kind of, we all know that, but we don't know that, you know?
I think we know that, but we don't want to believe it because of the amount of information out there isn't necessarily always the truth. And that's why I wanted to create this platform to have other amazing women on here and to celebrate you, to celebrate what you're doing, to have a real conversation. I mean, I have questions, but it's not like scripted. You know, and that's what it's for, to give people, make people feel maybe a little less bad about themselves, to know we're all in this together. There's no like exact way of doing it right. And, you know, what they can take with them to feel more capable and confident to move ahead. Because I think sometimes just having that one conversation or hearing you say something gave somebody some inspiration or the motivation they needed when they might have today quit.
Right.
You know, and I think that's what the world needs more, is that just like hope or like a success story or sharing something of value to get people to go. And so with that, thank you so much for just so much value, an authentic conversation. And hopefully you all watching today got a lot of value from Maya today. Just a great conversation. I love this conversation. It's something I'm still working on, overcoming some of this stuff from, you know, limiting beliefs, false belief systems, and, you know, just constantly important conversations. And thank you for what you're doing for our future generations. And you guys go see Maya's, she's got a money mindset. You guys are launching the end of this month.
So yeah, so we have a money mindset workshops. We're launching, well, actually the registration is already open, but the classes are starting for teenagers and kids next week. So the registration link is in my bio. So everybody can sign up. And yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, let me know. But thank you so much, Tanya, for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. Maybe in the future you'll start something for us adults. But if not, adults can still register as with their kids and kind of participate in the background, right?
Yeah, well, that's what they do. Like they don't, you know, you don't see them in the videos, but a lot of them said they were kind of like sitting there and just observing everything and learning. So I think it helped.
Well, we all need what you're doing, and thank you so much. And we are going to be saving this, so drop your comment below on what you found and most value from today and what you're going to apply moving forward. Thank you so much for joining us on Minding My Business, where we're here to just share golden information and insight on how to elevate your business, your mindset, and your life. Until next Tuesday, bye.
Bye, Tanya.
Bye. Thank you.